The future isn't hidden. You don't need a fortune teller to predict your future for you. It is not hidden. It is right in front of you. We like to make the future mysterious. We treat it like something buried behind chance encounters, sudden breakthroughs, or one defining decision we haven't made yet. We speak about it like a locked room, as if life is waiting to surprise us with a dramatic twist. But the truth is far less dramatic and far more confronting. If you want to know how your life will look in the next 5 years, don't overthink it. Don't search the skies for signs. Don't keep asking, what will happen to me? Just look at what you're doing today. Because your future is not a secret, it is a pattern. Your health is written in what you eat today and how often you move your body. Not in the loud promises you make when you're inspired, but in the quiet choices you repeat when nobody is watching. It's in the snacks you reach for when you're stressed. It's in how late you sleep and how early you wake. It's in the way you treat your body when it's tired, when it's anxious, when it's bored. The quality of your relationships is reflected in how you listen, how you speak, and how you show up for people, not in what you post online, not in what you claim you value. It's in whether you pay attention when someone is talking. It's in whether you apologize when you're wrong. It's in whether you bring peace into a room or you bring pressure. And your career trajectory and income are shaped by what you continuously do during your working days, not what you intend to do, not what you plan to do, what you actually do. The skills you build, the standards you keep, the problems you learn to solve, the way you manage your time when nobody is supervising you. That is why the future isn't magical. It's mathematical. It's cause and effect. And this is where many people get uncomfortable, because it removes the excuse of randomness. It removes the fantasy that life will change just because you want it to. It reveals something powerful, but it also reveals something heavy. If you don't like where your life is headed, you can't keep doing what you've been doing. Now listen closely. Most people don't end up in a bad life because they made one terrible decision. They end up there because they kept making tiny, harmless decisions that felt normal. It doesn't look like a tragedy at first. It looks like small delays. A little overspending that becomes a habit. A little procrastination that becomes a lifestyle. A little bitterness that becomes a personality. A little neglect that becomes distance. A little distraction that becomes a lost decade. It starts with statements that sound innocent. I'll start next week. It's not that serious. I'm just tired. This is just how I am. Let me enjoy now. I'll fix it later. But time doesn't negotiate with later. Time only multiplies what you keep feeding. And here's a truth most people don't want to admit. You are always feeding something. You are feeding your strength or your weakness. You are feeding your discipline or your excuses. You are feeding your peace or your chaos. You are feeding your future or your comfort. Even when you do nothing, you're still choosing. Doing nothing is not neutral. Doing nothing is still a direction. Somebody heard that and immediately felt pressure. You're thinking, so you're saying I'm behind. You're saying I've wasted time. No, that's not what I'm saying. This is not an audiobook to shame you. This is an audiobook to wake you up. Because once you see the truth, you can change the truth. And the truth is this. Your life 5 years from now is often a louder version of your habits today. If you keep showing up the same way, the results will get louder. If you keep avoiding the same things, the consequences will get louder. If you keep feeding the same patterns, the outcomes will get louder. And that is why the future is not a mystery. It's a mirror. Now imagine this with me. Picture someone who keeps saying they want a better life. A better body, better money, better relationships. They talk about it passionately. They watch motivational videos. They save quotes. They pray about it. They even cry about it sometimes. But their days don't match their desires. They wake up and immediately reach for their phone. Their mind is filled with other people's lives before they even remember their own. They eat whatever is fast. They work with half focus. They avoid difficult conversations. They spend to feel better. They stay up late, not because they're building a dream, but because they're escaping the weight of reality. Then they look up one day and feel shocked. Why am I still here? Why did nothing change? Why is my life the same? But nothing changed because the pattern didn't change. And if that sounds harsh, let's flip it. Picture another person. They're not perfect. Their life isn't glamorous. They have bills. they have stress, they have setbacks, but they've made one quiet decision: I will live like my future matters. So they choose a few habits that support that future. They don't do everything, but they do something. They learn to protect their mornings. They move their body, even when they don't feel like it. They improve their skill bit by bit. They stop entertaining people who keep them small. They stop feeding habits that drain them. And years later, people call it luck. People say, you're blessed. People say, you're fortunate. People say, you just had a breakthrough. But it wasn't magic. It was momentum. And momentum is built in private, long before it shows up in public. So here's the direction of this audiobook. We are going to expose the patterns that predict your future. We are going to break down the habits that quietly sabotage your next 5 years. We are going to talk about health, relationships, money, career, environment, distractions, and identity, because identity is the engine behind it all. Most importantly, we're going to make this practical, not raw motivation that wears off when life gets real. Not hype, not pressure, simple, powerful shifts that you can actually repeat. Because the future doesn't respond to wishes. It responds to what you do consistently. So let's begin with a question that sounds simple, but can change your entire direction. If nothing changed except time, would you like where your life is headed? Take a breath. Don't answer with what you hope. Answer with what your habits are saying. Because your habits are already answering. And once you can read them, you can rewrite them. Now in the next chapter, we'll talk about the law behind all of this. Why time doesn't create results. It only magnifies what you repeatedly do. And when you understand that, you stop waiting for the future and you start building it. Before we move on, if you're listening on Audiobook Lib and you want more content like this, deep, practical, and life-shifting, make sure you subscribe, follow the channel, and drop a comment about the one pattern you're deciding to change starting today. Chapter 2. The Law of Patterns. Time only amplifies. If Chapter 1 was the mirror, then Chapter 2 is the math. Because once you accept that your future is not hidden, the next question becomes simple. Why does life feel like it suddenly changes when most people are doing small things every day? Here's the answer. Time doesn't create results. Time reveals results. Time is not a magician. Time is a magnifier. Whatever you keep doing, good or bad, time will make it louder. It will turn quiet habits into obvious outcomes. It will turn small neglect into real damage. It will turn small discipline into real strength. That's why people wake up one day and say, how did my health get this bad? Or how did we become strangers? Or how did I end up living paycheck to paycheck? It didn't happen in one day. It happened in 1,000 ordinary days that felt too small to matter. And on the other side, that's why some people wake up and suddenly look successful, fit, disciplined, or lucky. It wasn't sudden, it was consistent. Think about it. A small leak under a sink doesn't flood your house in the first hour. You can ignore it today and still make dinner comfortably. You can ignore it tomorrow and still sleep peacefully. You can ignore it for weeks and still pretend it's not a big deal. Then one day you open the cabinet and everything is ruined. Same leak, same water, same cause. The only difference was time. That's how habits work. They don't announce themselves like emergencies. They show up like normal. They show up like comfort. They show up like routine. They show up like the way you've always done it. And because the early consequences are small, we delay change. But time is patient. Time doesn't argue. Time doesn't shout. Time just keeps collecting the payments. Compounding works on everything, not just money. We often hear the word compound and think about investments. But compounding is not only financial. Compounding is human. One night of poor sleep is a rough morning. A month of poor sleep becomes irritability, cravings, low energy, and poor focus. A year of poor sleep can rewrite your health, your mood, and your productivity. One careless comment in a relationship can be repaired quickly. A pattern of careless comments becomes resentment. A pattern of resentment becomes distance. Distance becomes two people living under the same roof, but emotionally in different worlds. One wasted hour doesn't ruin a career. A habit of wasted hours becomes missed skills. Missed skills become missed opportunities. Missed opportunities become a life that feels stuck. It's not dramatic. It's gradual. And that's why it's dangerous. Because gradual feels safe. The two lives that look the same, until they don't. There's a season where two people can live completely different futures while looking like they're in the same place. Both of them wake up and go to work. Both of them get tired. Both of them have stress. Both of them want more. From the outside, they look identical, but one of them has a pattern. When they get home, they do one small thing that moves their life forward. Sometimes it's learning. Sometimes it's walking. Sometimes it's planning. Sometimes it's turning off the noise and focusing. It's not glamorous. It's not Instagram-worthy. It's quiet. The other person also gets home and disappears. Not physically, emotionally. They numb themselves, they scroll, they binge, they delay. They postpone the hard things and then call it rest. They keep telling themselves they'll start when they feel ready. The scary thing is, for a while, both people feel the same. They both feel tired. They both feel behind. They both feel like life is hard. But fast forward and one person's small thing becomes a new identity. And the other person's small escape becomes a trap. Time makes the difference visible. Your current life is not your real problem. This might sound strange, but your current life isn't the main issue. The main issue is the direction. Because if you're in a car going the wrong way, you don't fix it by decorating the dashboard. You fix it by turning around. Direction matters more than speed. You can be moving slowly toward a better life and still win. You can be moving fast toward a worse life and still lose. Some people are busy, exhausted, and productive. But their direction is wrong. They're working hard, but they're working on the wrong things. They're spending energy, but not building outcomes. They're active, but not advancing. So let's simplify it. Your future is not built by intensity. It's built by alignment. Alignment means your daily habits match your desired destination, the default setting problem. Now here's the reason many people struggle. They don't choose their patterns. They inherit them. They inherit the eating habits of their environment. They inherit the thinking habits of their friends. They inherit the money habits of their family. They inherit the comfort habits of their culture. And then they call it personality. This is just how I am. But how you are is often just what you've rehearsed. A lot of people are not living intentionally. They are living automatically. They wake up and let their phone tell them how to feel. They let their mood decide their discipline. They let other people's opinions control their self-worth. And then they wonder why they don't feel in control of their future. Because if you don't choose your habits will choose your future. You can start small and still win big. Here's the good news. You don't need to change everything today. That's the trap people fall into. They hear a message like this, and they try to become a new person overnight. They attack their life like a storm, and then burn out after 3 days. But the future isn't built in 3 days. It's built in patterns. So you don't need a life overhaul. You need a pattern upgrade. One change that is small enough to repeat, but meaningful enough to matter. A small change repeated is more powerful than a big change attempted. Let that land. A small change repeated is more powerful than a big change attempted. Because repeated action becomes automatic. Automatic becomes identity. Identity becomes destiny. Let me give you a practical mental tool right now. Before you do something that you know isn't good for you, before you spend impulsively, before you speak harshly, before you waste a whole evening, before you skip the important work, pause and look through a 5-year telescope. Ask, if I keep doing this like this, what does my life become? Not once, not twice, repeatedly. Because one bad choice doesn't ruin you. A repeated bad choice becomes you. And now ask the opposite. If I keep doing the better thing, even small, what does my life become? That question is not judgment. It's clarity. And clarity is freedom. Now that you understand the law, time magnifies patterns. The next step is to learn how to read your current life like evidence. Because if your future is a pattern, your present is the proof. In the next chapter, we're going to talk about what I call the receipt principle. How your daily habits leave receipts in your body, your relationships, your bank account, your emotions, and your results. And once you can read those receipts, you stop guessing what your future will look like. You start knowing, and when you know, you can change. Chapter 3. The Receipt Principle. Your life leaves evidence. Look closely at your life right now, not with shame, not with denial, with honesty, because your life is not random. It is reporting back to you, quietly, consistently, every single day. Most people ask, "What's wrong with me?" A better question is, "What am I repeatedly doing?" That's the receipt principle. A receipt is proof of purchase. It shows what you paid for and what you walked away with. And whether you like it or not, your days produce receipts. Your body produces receipts. Your relationships produce receipts. Your bank account produces receipts. Your mind produces receipts. And the receipts don't lie. You don't have to guess what your future is going to be. Your present habits are already giving you a preview. Receipt 1. The body receipt. Some people say, "I don't know why my energy is always low," but the receipt is there. It's in the late night scrolling that cuts sleep short. It's in the quick meals that spike sugar and crash you later. It's in the days you barely move, then wonder why your body feels heavy. The body is honest. It keeps records. You can ignore the signals at first because the human body is generous. It compensates, it adapts, it pushes through. That's why people can mistreat themselves for a while and still show up to work, still laugh with friends, still function. But eventually the receipts pile up. You start feeling older than your age. You start feeling tired even after rest. You start feeling off, but you can't explain why. It's not a mystery. It's a pattern. Now flip it. There are people who don't have perfect genetics and don't live a perfect life, but their energy improves, their mood steadies, their confidence grows because they began paying for health in small amounts daily. They didn't buy a new body. They bought a new pattern, a little movement, a little hydration, a little more real food, a little less sabotage. And time did what time always does. It amplified. Receipt 2, the relationship receipt. Relationships also keep receipts, and they are often even more detailed than the body. People don't fall out of love overnight. They fall out of connection gradually. It happens when "how was your day" becomes a formality, not a real question. It happens when someone tries to explain how they feel, and the other person is already building a defense in their head. It happens when silence becomes normal, and resentment becomes private entertainment. Then one day someone says, "You changed." But the truth is, the receipts were stacking up for years. The dismissive tone, the broken promises, the lack of presence, the habit of choosing comfort over courage. And sometimes, the pain isn't that people hate each other. It's worse. It's that they stopped trying. Yet the same principle works in the other direction. A relationship can also become stronger through small, repeated purchases. A person who learns to pause before replying. A person who chooses honesty without cruelty. A person who checks in, even when they're busy. A person who says, "I hear you," and means it. That's how trust gets rebuilt, not through one big speech, but through a consistent pattern that makes the other person feel safe again. Receipt 3. The money receipt. Money is one of the clearest receipt systems on earth, because it's written down. You can feel successful in your mind, but your bank statements don't care about feelings. Your financial future is not predicted by your dreams. It's predicted by your defaults. The small things people don't think matter. The impulse spending that isn't much. The subscriptions quietly feeding on your account. The habit of spending first and saving what's left, meaning nothing is left. Then there's the other side, the hidden cost of not upgrading. Some people aren't broke because they don't earn. They're broke because they don't grow. Their skill stayed the same. Their value stayed the same. Their confidence stayed the same. So their income stayed the same. And inflation doesn't negotiate. But again, the receipt principle can work in your favor. A person learns one useful skill. They become slightly better at communication. They become slightly better at selling, negotiating, presenting, or solving problems. At first, nobody notices. Then opportunities start showing up like luck. It's not luck. It's the receipt being cashed. Receipt 4. The mind receipt. Your mind is always collecting what you feed it, what you watch, what you listen to, what you repeat in your self-talk, what you rehearse in your imagination. If you feed your mind fear, it will produce hesitation. If you feed your mind comparison, it will produce insecurity. If you feed your mind excuses, it will produce delay. Some people are not battling life. They are battling the mental diet they've been consuming every day. They wake up and download anxiety through the phone. They scroll through other people's wins and call it inspiration, but it leaves them feeling smaller. They fill their head with noise, then wonder why they can't focus. That's a receipt, and it can be reversed. When you start feeding your mind things that build you, clarity, learning, discipline, real hope, you start noticing a quiet shift. You become more stable. You become more patient. You become more courageous. Not because the world changed, but because what you repeatedly consumed changed. How to read your receipts without self-hate. Now this is where people either transform or collapse. Some people read their receipts and hate themselves. They say, "I'm finished. I wasted time. I'm not disciplined. I always ruin things." That's not truth. That's condemnation. Receipts are not there to insult you. Receipts are there to inform you. If you bought something you don't like, you don't keep buying it out of pride. You adjust. So here's the practical move. Pick one receipt category and do a quick audit. Body. What habits are charging my energy? And what habits are draining it? Relationships. What habits are building trust? And what habits are building distance? Money. What habits are building freedom? And what habits are building pressure? Mind. What habits are building confidence? And what habits are building fear? Notice the patterns, not the perfection, because you're not trying to become perfect. You're trying to become consistent. Here's the part that should give you hope. A receipt means you can track it. And if you can track it, you can change it. Your future isn't a mystery. It's a direction. It's a direction, and direction changes with small, repeated decisions. Chapter 4. The Drift Problem. How comfort quietly takes the wheel. There is a dangerous lie hiding inside the word later. Later sounds harmless. Later sounds responsible. Later sounds like you're being patient, like you're planning, like you're waiting for the right time. But later is also the doorway through which most people lose their future. Not because they made a bold choice to ruin their lives, because they drifted. And drift is subtle. Drift doesn't feel like sabotage. Drift feels like normal life. It feels like being tired. It feels like being busy. It feels like I've been through a lot. I deserve this. It feels like I'll get serious when things calm down. But here's the truth. Things rarely calm down on their own. Life doesn't suddenly hand you space. You create space. You protect it. You fight for it. So if you don't build direction intentionally, comfort will build direction for you automatically. Drift is what happens when you don't choose. Imagine a boat on the ocean with no anchor and no navigation. The boat isn't trying to crash. It isn't trying to get lost. It's not making a dramatic mistake. It's simply unattended. And in the beginning, the water is calm, so it feels safe. But the ocean doesn't need a storm to move you. A current is enough. That's what drift is. A current of routines. A current of distractions. A current of other people's expectations. A current of your own moods. And the scariest part is this. You can drift while still doing a lot. You can drift while working hard. You can drift while staying busy. You can drift while being praised. You can drift while surviving. Because drift is not about effort. Drift is about direction. Why drift feels comfortable at first? Drift feels comfortable because it often begins as relief. You're stressed, so you reach for something that quiets the stress. You're overwhelmed, so you avoid the thing you should face. You feel behind, so you distract yourself to escape the feeling, and it works for a moment. That's why it becomes a pattern. The phone gives quick relief. Food gives quick relief. Shopping gives quick relief. Gossip gives quick relief. Sleep gives quick relief. Avoidance gives quick relief. But relief is not the same as progress. Relief is a temporary painkiller. Progress is a permanent upgrade. Some people treat relief like a lifestyle and wonder why life doesn't improve. Because the future doesn't reward relief. The future rewards alignment. How people get stuck without noticing. Drift usually follows a predictable cycle. 1. Pressure builds. Something feels heavy. Responsibilities, bills, expectations, fear, comparisons. 2. Escape becomes attractive. You reach for whatever gives immediate comfort. 3. Temporary relief happens. You feel better. Briefly. 4. Consequences grow quietly. Work piles up, health declines, relationships strain, money leaks. 5. Shame appears. Shame appears. You start feeling guilty or frustrated. 6. Pressure builds again, and because you don't want to feel shame, you escape again. That cycle can repeat for years, not because someone is foolish, not because someone is weak, because they didn't understand what was happening. They thought they needed more motivation, but motivation is not what breaks drift. Structure breaks drift. The myth of one day I'll feel ready. Drift survives on a fantasy. One day, I will wake up ready, ready to be disciplined, ready to be consistent, ready to change, ready to build. But readiness is not a feeling you wait for. Readiness is a decision you practice. The people who win are not the people who always feel motivated. They are the people who have learned to move even when motivation is absent. They have learned the skill of showing up, because consistency is not a personality trait. It's a trained behavior. Drift loves normal. Drift also hides behind what everyone else calls normal. It's normal to eat poorly and call it being busy. It's normal to complain and call it venting. It's normal to overspend and call it enjoyment. It's normal to avoid hard conversations and call it peace. It's normal to stay in environments that shrink you and call it loyalty. Normal can be dangerous when normal is broken. So the real question is not, is this normal? The real question is this normal taking me where I want to go? Because normal can lead you straight into regret. Comfort is not the enemy. Comfort without control is. Let's be clear. Comfort itself is not evil. Rest is necessary. Joy is necessary. Entertainment has its place. The problem is, when comfort becomes your steering wheel, when comfort becomes the decision maker, when you only do what feels good now, you borrow pain from the future. You may not feel the cost today, but you will pay it later with interest. And the interest shows up as stress. You can't explain health. You have to repair. Money you have to chase. Relationships you have to rebuild. Time you can't recover. Drift doesn't destroy you quickly. It destroys you quietly. The wake-up pattern. One honest moment. Most people don't change because they hear one motivational speech. They change because of one honest moment. A moment where they look at their life and admit, this is not going where I thought it would go. It might be stepping on a scale and feeling shocked. It might be seeing a bank balance and going quiet. It might be noticing the distance in someone's eyes. It might be feeling exhausted by your own repeated cycle. That moment is painful, but it's also powerful, because pain can be a messenger, not a punishment, an alarm. And when you treat pain like an alarm, you stop numbing it and start using it. You start asking better questions. What am I doing repeatedly that is producing this? What am I avoiding that is costing me? What comfort am I paying for with my future? Those are grown questions. Those are freedom questions. How to stop drift without becoming extreme. Now here's where some people misunderstand. They think the solution is to become harsh with themselves, to become extreme, to try to control every detail of life. That's not sustainable. The solution is not perfection. The solution is a few non-negotiable anchors. Anchors are small habits that hold your direction steady, even when emotions change. Anchors might be a morning routine that starts your day with intention, a short daily movement habit, a fixed time for learning or skill building, a weekly budget check, one weekly connection habit, calling someone, checking in, repairing. When you have anchors, you don't drift as easily, because your life has something holding it in place. You don't need 10 anchors. You need 2 or 3 that actually stick. So let's make this personal. If you've been drifting, it doesn't mean you're doomed. It means you've been human in a world designed to distract you. But now you know the truth. Drift is not destiny. Drift is the absence of a chosen direction, and direction can be chosen again today. In the next chapter, we are going to talk about the deepest engine behind drift, and behind discipline, identity. Because if you don't change how you see yourself, you will keep returning to familiar habits, even after you swear you're done. We'll break down how identity is formed, how it traps people, and how to shift it without pretending or faking confidence. Because when identity changes, consistency stops feeling like torture. It starts feeling like who you are. Chapter 5. Identity, the hidden engine behind your habits. If drift is what happens when comfort takes the wheel, identity is the reason comfort has the keys in the first place. Because here's what most people miss. You don't consistently act against who you believe you are. You can force yourself for a day. You can push for a week. You can even have a strong month when inspiration is high and the pain is fresh. But sooner or later, you return to your self-image. Not because you're weak. Because identity is gravity. It pulls you back to what feels familiar. Why goals fail when identity stays the same. This is why some people set goals every January and abandon them by February. They're trying to build a new life with an old identity. They say, I want to be disciplined, but deep down they believe, I'm the kind of person who can't stay consistent. They say, I want to be financially stable, but their inner identity is, money always leaves my hands. They say, I want to be fit, but their inner script is, I've never been that person. And here's the trap. When your behavior improves temporarily, your old identity feels threatened. It feels unfamiliar, almost like you're pretending. So the mind tries to restore the old normal. You miss one workout, and your mind whispers, see, that's the real you. You overspend once, and your mind says, you can't manage money. You lose your temper, and your mind says, this is who you are. And if you don't catch that voice, you accept it. You don't just make a mistake. You become the mistake. That's identity sabotage. The real war is not outside, it's inside. Most people fight the wrong battle. They fight the habit without fighting the belief behind the habit. So they try to fix behavior with pressure, but pressure is temporary. They keep waiting for motivation, but motivation is emotional. They keep searching for the perfect routine, but routines collapse when identity disagrees. Because your habits are not random choices. They are expressions of who you think you are. Even the habits that hurt you. Especially the habits that hurt you. Sometimes people hold on to destructive habits because those habits support an identity. An identity like, I'm stressed, so I deserve comfort. I'm unlucky, so it won't work anyway. I'm behind, so why try? I'm not that kind of person. I always mess things up. It becomes a story you live inside. And if you live inside a story long enough, it starts to feel like truth. How identity is built. The repetition of evidence. Identity is not created by what you say once. It's created by what you repeatedly prove to yourself. Every day, you collect evidence about who you are. When you keep promises to yourself, you collect evidence of reliability. When you break promises repeatedly, you collect evidence of inconsistency. When you face difficulty, you collect evidence of courage. When you avoid discomfort, you collect evidence of avoidance. After enough repetition, it becomes a label. And once it becomes a label, it becomes automatic. That's why people can be talented and still stuck. Because talent is not the same as identity. And the mind will protect identity, even when identity is hurting you. The prison of that's just how I am. One of the most expensive sentences a human can speak is, that's just how I am. Sometimes people say it proudly, like it's confidence. But often, it's surrender disguised as personality. I'm just not a morning person. I'm just bad with money. I'm just hot-tempered. I'm just lazy. I'm just not good at consistency. Listen carefully. You may have tendencies, but you are not trapped. Many of those statements are not personality. They are practice. They are rehearsed patterns, repeated until they felt permanent. And anything practiced can be retrained. The identity shift. The only change that lasts. If you want a different future, you don't start by demanding perfect behavior. You start by choosing a new identity, then building evidence for it. This is the shift. Not I want to run, but I'm becoming someone who moves daily. Not I want to save money, but I'm becoming someone who respects my future. Not I want to be successful, but I'm becoming someone who solves problems and builds skills. Because the goal is an outcome. Identity is the person who produces outcomes. And once identity changes, habits become easier. Not easy, but easier. Because you're not forcing behavior. You're expressing who you are becoming. There are two voices in your head that matter more than you realize. 1. The voice that speaks when you're doing well. 2. The voice that speaks when you fail. Most people can talk positively when they're winning. But life is not shaped in your winning moments. It's shaped in your recovery moments. What do you say to yourself when you slip? Some people slip and say, "I ruined it. I'm hopeless. I always do this." Forget it. And that voice is not a description. It's a command. It tells your nervous system, return to the old identity. But there is a better voice. A voice that says, "I slipped, but I'm still committed. That was one moment, not my identity. I'm learning consistency, not performing perfection. I return immediately." That voice doesn't excuse mistakes. It refuses to build a home inside them. The power move. Return immediately. This might be the most important discipline tool you ever learn. Return immediately. Most damage is not caused by the slip. It's caused by the story you tell after the slip. One missed workout is not the problem. The problem is the week you lose because you decided you failed. One overspend is not the problem. The problem is the month you lose because you said, "What's the point?" One bad day is not the problem. The problem is the identity you adopt because of it. So the mature person doesn't say, "I'll restart on Monday." The mature person says, "I return now." Because returning immediately is how a new identity is built. Not by never falling, but by refusing to stay down. How to build a new identity without faking it. Some people hear identity shift and think it means pretending, speaking affirmations you don't believe, acting confident when you're not. No. Identity is built with proof, not fantasy. So you start small enough that you can win. You choose a behavior so simple, you can repeat it daily, even on hard days. That becomes your first piece of evidence. A 5-minute walk. A 10-minute learning session. A single financial rule. I track what I spend. A single relationship rule. I don't speak in anger, I pause first. Small wins are not small. Small wins are identity votes. And when you stack enough votes, the identity changes. You start believing yourself, not because you said it, because you proved it. So here's your chapter question. What kind of person do you want your future to be built by? Not the fantasy version. The real version. The version who shows up in ordinary days. And here's the follow-up. What is one small habit that person would do today? That's how identity becomes practical. In the next chapter, we're going to take this deeper into one of the most immediate forecasts of your next 5 years, your health. Not health as vanity. Health as energy, clarity, confidence, and the ability to execute your plans. Because without energy, even the best plans become heavy. And when you understand the health forecast, you stop treating your body like a machine you can abuse, and you start treating it like the vehicle carrying your future. Chapter 6. The Health Forecast. Your body is writing tomorrow. Let's talk about health. But not in the shallow way people usually talk about it. Not weight, not aesthetics, not trying to impress anyone. Health is deeper than that. Health is your energy in the morning. Health is your mood in traffic. Health is your patience with people you love. Health is your ability to focus when life is demanding. Health is how quickly you recover when stress hits. In simple terms, health is the fuel of your future. And most people don't realize how much their future depends on it until their body starts sending invoices. Because when your body is low, everything becomes harder. Discipline becomes heavier. Work becomes slower. Confidence becomes shakier. Relationships become more tense. You can have great dreams and a weak body, and those dreams will feel like carrying bricks uphill. So if you want to forecast your next 5 years, look at how you treat the vehicle that has to carry you there. The silent trade people make every day. A lot of people are trading their future health for present comfort. Not because they're careless, because the consequences are delayed. One unhealthy meal doesn't destroy a life. 1 week of inactivity doesn't erase a future. So the brain says, it's fine, then it's fine. Becomes a pattern. And eventually, the pattern becomes a lifestyle. Then the lifestyle becomes a condition. You wake up one day and realize you've been living in a body that feels heavier than your dreams. Not because you failed, because you repeated a trade. Present comfort, in exchange for future capacity. The energy budget. Think of your health like an energy account. Some habits deposit energy. Some habits withdraw energy. The problem is, many people are living like their energy is unlimited. They sleep late and wake up early. Withdrawal. They eat to feel good, not to function well. Withdrawal. They stay seated all day. Withdrawal. They carry stress with no release. Withdrawal. They scroll at night until their mind is overstimulated. Withdrawal. Then they wake up shocked that the balance is low. But your body is not confused. Your body is consistent. It pays you back in the currency of what you repeatedly do. And when the energy balance stays low, people start losing years in slow motion. Not because time is against them. Because their habits are the 4 pillars that predict your health future. If you want to simplify your health forecast, focus on 4 things. 1. Sleep. 2. Food. 3. Movement. 4. Stress recovery. These 4 are not trends. They are foundations. Let's walk through them the way real life actually feels. 1. Sleep. The invisible multiplier. Sleep is not laziness. Sleep is restoration. When sleep is poor, everything else gets worse. You crave sugar and fast comfort. You become more emotionally reactive. You lose patience quicker. You focus less. You make weaker decisions. And what's scary is that poor sleep doesn't just make you tired. It makes you impulsive. Some people think their biggest problem is discipline, when the real problem is exhaustion. They're trying to build a better life while running on an empty battery. There are people who can transform their health and even their finances just by fixing sleep. Because once the mind is rested, decisions get stronger. When you wake up rested, you don't need motivation as much. You have capacity. 2. Food. The mood switch you don't notice. Food is information. It tells your body what to do. Some meals make you sharp. Some meals make you foggy. Some meals make you stable. Some meals make you crash. And here's the truth. Many people are eating for emotions, not for function. They don't eat because they're hungry. They eat because they're stressed. They eat because they're bored. They eat because they're tired. They eat because food has become a comfort language. So when you hear someone say, "I don't know why my mood is always off," sometimes it's not personality. It's blood sugar. Sometimes it's not weakness. It's the crash after the comfort. A person can feel anxious, tired, and irritable, not because life is impossible, but because their daily inputs are pulling their nervous system up and down like a roller coaster. Now, this isn't about becoming extreme or perfect. It's about becoming aware. Your future body is being built one plate at a time. 3. Movement. The anti-depression habit, hidden in plain sight. Movement is not just for fitness. Movement is for the brain. A lot of people don't need more motivation. They need more circulation. When you move, you release tension. When you move, your mind clears. When you move, you regulate stress. The modern world makes inactivity easy. You can sit in a car, sit at work, sit at home, sit while eating, sit while resting, sit while relaxing. And slowly the body becomes stiff, the energy becomes low, and the mind becomes heavy. Then you start feeling like life is harder than it should be. But it's hard to feel powerful in a body you never challenge. Even a consistent daily walk changes something deep. It tells your brain, "I'm not stuck. I move, I progress." It sounds small, but small repeated movement becomes a new identity. 4. Stress recovery. The part people skip. This is where many adults fail. They have stress every day, but no recovery system. They carry pressure at work, carry it home, carry it into bed, then wake up and carry it again. That's not strength. That's slow damage. Your body can handle stress. It was designed for it, but it was also designed to come back to baseline. If you never return to baseline, you start living in survival mode. And survival mode makes everything worse. You get reactive. You get impatient. You crave quick comfort. You stop thinking long-term. You make decisions from fear and fatigue. Some people aren't inconsistent because they lack discipline. They're inconsistent because they are constantly overwhelmed. So recovery is not optional. Recovery can be prayer. Recovery can be breathing. Recovery can be journaling. Recovery can be quiet. Recovery can be a walk without headphones. Recovery can be real conversation. Recovery can be removing noise. What matters is that you have a way to reset. The health trap. Waiting for a perfect time. Health doesn't need a perfect time. It needs a pattern. Most people delay health until they have money, until they have time, until they have less stress, until they feel ready. But that mindset quietly steals the future. The truth is, if you wait for life to be calm before you take care of your body, you may never start. Because adult life doesn't become calm. You become stronger. So you don't wait for calm. You build anchors. Small, repeatable anchors. 2 anchors that can change the next 5 years. Here are 2 anchors that aren't dramatic but are powerful. 1. A daily movement anchor. Not intense. Not complicated. Just consistent. 2. A sleep boundary. A cutoff time for screens. A bedtime you respect. A ritual that signals rest. When these 2 stabilize, your mind becomes clearer, your cravings reduce, your focus improves, and suddenly you can start building other areas of life. Because energy creates options, and health creates energy. The point of this chapter is not to turn you into a fitness person. The point is to turn you into a future person. Someone who understands that your body is not separate from your destiny. If you want a better life, you need the capacity to live it. And capacity is built daily.